You finally reach something you worked for. The promotion, the degree, the goal you imagined for months, maybe years. For a moment, there's relief. But then something strange happens. Instead of satisfaction, there's a quiet emptiness. Almost like the meaning disappeared the moment you arrived. And that feeling raises a quiet, uncomfortable question. If achieving things doesn't feel the way it's supposed to, then what exactly have you been chasing this whole time? 2. Problem deep dive. Most people imagine achievement as a finish line. You struggle. You work harder than everyone else. You finally get there. And when you do, life is supposed to feel different, clearer, more stable. But the lived experience is rarely like that. You might notice something subtle. The excitement fades faster than expected. The thing you wanted so badly suddenly feels ordinary, sometimes even meaningless. Visual, trophy placed on a shelf, camera slowly pulling back. And then your mind does something even stranger. Instead of feeling satisfied, it immediately looks for the next target, the next project, the next improvement, the next way to prove something. It's like standing on top of a hill, only to realize you're already scanning the horizon for another one. This pattern quietly shapes your identity. Your worth becomes tied to movement. If you're progressing, you feel valuable. If you're not, something feels wrong. That's why stillness feels uncomfortable. Relaxing feels undeserved. And achieving something big doesn't give peace. It just creates a brief pause before the pressure returns, which leads to a difficult thought many people never say out loud. What if the chase itself has become your identity? But to understand why this happens, you have to look at how the brain is designed to experience progress, not achievement. Number 3, reframe. At first, this pattern can feel like something is wrong with you, like you're ungrateful or emotionally disconnected. But psychologically, what you're experiencing is not a defect. It's an adaptation. Your brain is not built to feel long-term satisfaction from outcomes. It's built to stay motivated. From an evolutionary perspective, a brain that became permanently satisfied after one success would stop striving. It would stop searching, stop improving. That would have been dangerous for survival. So instead, the brain developed a different system, a system that rewards movement more than arrival. And that system is powered by a chemical you've probably heard about, dopamine. But dopamine is widely misunderstood. It isn't the chemical of happiness. It's the chemical of anticipation. And that difference explains almost everything. Number 4, psychological mechanism. Think of dopamine like a spotlight. But it doesn't shine on the reward itself. It shines on the possibility of the reward. When your brain believes something valuable might happen in the future, dopamine increases. That surge creates motivation, energy, focus. You start imagining the outcome, planning steps, feeling pulled toward the goal. But here's the important part. Once the reward actually arrives, the dopamine spike drops, because the future possibility has turned into the present reality. The brain stops anticipating. It stops projecting. So the chemical system that powered your motivation turns quiet. Visual, rising line graph that suddenly levels out. This creates what psychologists sometimes call the motivation paradox. You feel most alive when you're moving towards something. But once you reach it, the emotional engine that fueled the journey shuts down. It's similar to climbing a mountain. While climbing, your mind is engaged. Every step matters. Every movement feels purposeful. But when you reach the summit, something strange happens. The climb is over. The challenge disappears. And suddenly, there's nothing left to push against. Visual, person standing on mountain peak looking out at empty horizon. That's why the moment after achievement often feels quiet. Not because the achievement was meaningless, but because your brain was wired to care most about the climb. And once you see that pattern clearly, something interesting happens. You realize the emptiness isn't a signal that you chose the wrong goal. It's a signal about how your brain organizes meaning, which leads to an important question. If the brain naturally resets after achievement, how do you build a life that still feels meaningful after the moment passes? The answer isn't chasing bigger and bigger goals. It's changing the way you relate to the pursuit itself. 2. Expect the emotional drop. Most people interpret the post-achievement emptiness as failure. But it's actually a predictable neurological cooldown. Your brain simply finished a dopamine cycle. When you anticipate this drop, it stops feeling like something is wrong. Athletes experience this constantly. After a championship game, many report a temporary emotional crash. Not because the win was disappointing, but because months of anticipation suddenly disappeared overnight. Understanding the cycle removes the confusion. You stop expecting permanent emotional highs from temporary goals. 3. Expand identity beyond achievement. When your identity is built only on success, every finished goal creates an identity gap. You lose the role that gave you direction. But when identity includes multiple dimensions, curiosity, relationships, creativity, the brain has other sources of meaning. For example, someone who sees themselves only as a successful entrepreneur may feel lost after selling a company. But someone who also identifies as a learner, mentor, or creator still has internal continuity. The self doesn't collapse when one chapter ends. Visual, branching paths spreading from a central point. Psychologically, this stabilizes the narrative your brain tells about who you are. 4. Create smaller ongoing challenges. The brain loves incomplete stories. This is called the Zeigarnik effect. When something remains unfinished, your mind keeps returning to it. You can use this intentionally. Instead of one massive goal followed by emptiness, create layered challenges. A musician might finish one album while already exploring the sound of the next. A writer finishes a book but keeps a small list of ideas they're curious about. Visual, notebook page with several unfinished ideas. This keeps the motivation system gently active. Not through pressure, but through curiosity.